Welcome back in. We are doing something really cool, I think, this week. I am an alumni of Tennessee Tech University. I was a part of the communications department there and graduated with my bachelor's in journalism, and it was a really good experience, and I enjoyed it. A lot of great people there. Dr. Russ Witcher was my advisor, and also on the journalism side of things, the news editorial side, I took a lot of his classes because he primarily taught in that role. And lo and behold, Russ Witcher has written 5 books, and I was really excited when I found out that he had written this book, and the great, awesome Dr. Brenda Wilson gifted his book, Going Home to Die No More, to me for Christmas, and I was really thankful for that and very gracious, and it was really fun to read, and I've read it twice now, and then I'm getting to interview him today on this podcast. I went over to campus and sat in his office, and we had a good conversation about his writing style, his methods, all of these great things, and I'm really thankful for it because it's pretty cool. We got to have a published author on the show. So, without keeping you waiting any longer, here is my interview with the great Dr. Witcher for his book, Going Home to Die No More. All right, Dr. Witcher, how would you explain your book, what it's about?
Yeah, it's actually almost 3 years now that I came up with the idea. I've got a nephew who goes around and restores veterans' graves, and he had restored my great-granddaddy, which had been his great-great-granddaddy's grave, and he had posted it on Facebook around Memorial Day 3 years ago. And I saw, of course, I knew that he was a Civil War veteran, but it had his regiment listed. Mm-hmm. And so I just went and looked up his regiment, the roster. He even though he was from Tennessee, he fought for the Union, and he mustered in Franklin, Kentucky. And so I looked up the role of all the people who was in his regiment. I think there was another man from Macon County that was in that regiment too. And I looked up his captain, and I read a little bit more about his captain, William King, and it said, hanged for murder. Mm-hmm. And I thought, well, now I've got to look more into that. Yeah. I don't even think my great-granddaddy knew this happened because it happened after the Civil War.
Okay.
And he was in Red Bowling Springs, and this guy was in Franklin, Kentucky, which is 50 miles, and that was a lot back in the 1860s. So he never know what had happened, but after the war, his captain and his captain's brother and a few other men in that regiment decided that they were going to rob the Louisville and Nashville Railroad, which had just started operating maybe the year or two before. And that had happened quite a bit during the Civil War. Mm-hmm. And they knew that they carried money, and a lot of times it wasn't guarded. And so they derailed it and robbed what they could. Strangely enough, the train caught on fire. Yeah. Most of the money burned up.
Yeah, no.
Because they derailed it. Yeah. But anyway, they'd taken an oath that they would never tell on each other. But they committed the robbery like 4 miles out of Franklin. And a lot of people who were on the train at the time, because nobody fortunately was killed. Mm-hmm. They could have been, but they weren't, because the whole train wasn't derailed. But they would recognize their voices, even though they'd covered their face with cork. Yeah. So it was not really a well-planned operation. But anyway, apparently his brother, who had a drinking problem, started telling people who all was on the train, including himself. Because by this time, the L&N said, we'll give $10,000 leading to the rest of some or all of these men. And so maybe he was wanting the money, I don't know. Yeah. But a few days later, he winds up shot. Mm. And we still don't know for sure today who did it, but we do know that Abraham Owens asked William King, the captain, Owens was in that regiment, and his brother too, for a gun. Mm-hmm. And he gave him the gun. He said he was going to go to Tennessee. He didn't go to Tennessee. He went to a baptizing instead. And it led to his conviction for the murder. They said, oh, you borrowed a gun, and then this guy ends up dead, and y'all taking an oath that you're going to kill whoever talks, and he talks. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, that got William King in trouble because he gave him the gun. So even though he didn't shoot Harvey King, I guess that'd be called, what, aiding and abetting, you know?
Yeah, or an accomplice maybe or something.
That would lead to that. And I did a timeline on that, and I'm convinced nobody ever said that William King did it, but they did say Abraham Owens did it because he had the gun. But Abraham Owens, best I can tell, was at the baptizing like 4 miles away.
Yeah.
And so it just doesn't add up that he had time to shoot and kill, because everybody said the shooting took place at 9 o'clock. That's when everybody heard these shots. At 9 o'clock, he couldn't have had done that and then ridden to the baptizing and being seen by a lot of people at 10, 10:30, 9:30. There are different accounts vary, but still he'd be riding 4 miles in that period of time after killing Harvey King. And it just it doesn't work out that he would be the one who did it. Now, he may have known about it, and he probably did know about it, but he was not the murderer.
Do you think that Captain King was?
No, I don't think Captain King knew what he was going to do. I think what happened was another member of the regiment committed the murder. One thing that happened, and this is why I wrote the screenplay after the book, is Western Kentucky, where I got all this information. After I wrote the book, they had a document where a minister in Franklin had talked to these men on death row, and I got a lot of information just from what they said during death row that wasn't in the book. And so that's why I wanted to do the screenplay, because I had new information and I didn't want to just update the book.
Yeah.
And basically what they said is that Abraham Owens gave the gun to somebody else.
Oh, okay.
In that group of people.
Okay.
And and he said he didn't think it was one person. He thought it was two. But he thought he was going to shoot another man, Riley Toe.
Yeah.
And that's who everybody wanted dead.
Okay.
But not the people who did the killing. They said, okay, Riley told that Harvey told, but he wouldn't have had anything to tell if Harvey hadn't told him. So we need to kill Harvey.
Yeah.
And that's what they did. And so the irony is that William King gave his gun to a man who gave it to a man who killed his brother.
Okay. So kind of, I guess, like a hitman type of thing, maybe.
Yeah. And I think I know who did it. I'm pretty sure that Wesley Finn was one of the murderers. He might not have been the only one, but he was on the book, he's in the middle.
Okay.
I think of those three men. I just happened to find a tintype that had their... Yeah, okay. Now, this would be Wesley Finn on the left.
Oh, okay.
William King's on the right, and Abraham Owens is in the center.
Okay.
These two men were hanged.
Yeah.
And this is the man who probably did it.
Okay, yeah. And
So-
he got away with it.
Well, yeah, he jumped bail.
Oh, yeah, that's right, didn't he? Yeah, he did. And he ran off somewhere, too,
He
didn't
went to Arkansas, had about a dozen children.
And changed his name.
Became very successful as a farmer.
Yeah.
And lived, I think, until his 80s.
How about that?
I know. It's definitely a miscarriage of justice.
Yeah. Well, I noticed, I put on here, Captain King, I noticed was trying to lure him where he was saying, I've got this jar of money, let's go look at it.
To Riley Toe?
Yeah, and I was wondering, is he trying to...
Well, with that, you kind of have to decide what you think is true and what you think isn't true. First of all, I don't think Riley Toe was that dumb. I'll go with the 10 miles. But even if he was, I think what his plan is for somebody to kill Riley Toe. I mean, Abraham Owens basically picked up on the let's kill Riley Toe theory. And one thing that was brought out in trial was that one of these members of the regiment, Evans, was his name, I think John Evans, he claimed that William King asked him to kill Riley Toe for $10. Now, he didn't do it, but that's something that sounds more like William King's M.O. I won't do it, but if I can find somebody else who'll do it, then that's okay.
Yeah.
But he didn't want his brother killed, he wanted Riley Toe killed.
Yeah. Well, that was something I was trying to figure out, who did I think, I guess, did it based off the evidence we had. And I'm an older brother, and I was thinking, I don't know that I could kill, even if my brother was going to turn us in, I still don't know that I could kill my own brother. So I was having trouble saying that Captain King was the one that had done it.
Yeah, and I don't even think he knew who did it until I got this information about their deathbed confessions.
Oh, yeah.
And he said that while he was in prison, they were all together, except for Wesley Finn, who was wealthy and was out on bail.
Yeah.
but anyway, all the others were together, and he said he was pretending to be asleep, and he heard these two other men talking, and one of them said to the other, what had happened was that, Abraham Owens came and gave me this gun, and we ended up shooting Riley Toe. Now, that's something, of course, he could be lying, but that's something that I believe. I believe that that it was just kind of a plot gone wrong. Use this gun, kill the bad guy who ratted on us, and the bad guy ended up being the brother.
Yeah, and then he got away with it.
Then Finn left town. Yeah.
We were talking earlier about Abraham Owens and his story. I was wondering what you thought about when he was writing his letters to his family.
No, that was King.
That was King. Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
When Captain King was writing his letters to his family, that was one time that I did think that it was really suspicious, because it seemed like to me there was like an undertone of his letters, kind of like, you need to get your stories together so that when this comes up, we can have an alibi.
Yeah, and that's another thing that came out in the deathbed confession. That was the one thing William King admitted to having done and wished he hadn't, because he said, I was panicked, and I sent it out by a fellow prisoner, thinking that I could trust a fellow prisoner. He comes home, turns the information over to the court.
Yeah.
And that's basically, I think that had a lot to do with convicting him, because he was trying to get his family to lie for him.
Yeah. And Owens had said he was going to Tennessee.
Yeah.
But he didn't. He went to the baptism.
He did.
Okay.
He did.
But his mom said she had the gun, right, at one point.
Yeah, and I think his mom lied.
I think so too.
Because two of her sons were on trial. I mean, one wasn't convicted of murder. He would have been convicted of derailing the train, but that's pretty apparent that she was just trying to save their necks, literally.
Yeah, that's what when I read that, I thought, oh, this is a mom trying to come in and save her two sons. Yeah.
And it was challenged immediately. The prosecution said, "Would that be stricken from the record?" I didn't know they could do that, but I talked to a judge up there, and he said, "Yeah, that was common, and it may be common now. That's such a far-fetched idea that we're not even going to let that stand."
Well, you wrote something too that I thought was interesting, because I had watched a documentary. I can't remember when. It was about a recent murder, and they had brought evidence kind of like that up, and they asked for that to be stricken from the record, and they had interviewed the attorney after that, and he was saying, it doesn't matter if it's stricken from the record, the jurors have already heard this.
Exactly.
And so he said, we can say officially it's not there. But they still have digested that.
I think what the judge said to me was that this was appealed, this decision was appealed, and so it wouldn't be in the record on appeal. That, the judge who actually upheld the decision, I don't think he would have information to that testimony.
Yeah. So
it might affect the lower court decision, but it wouldn't be used as part of the appeal process.
Yeah. Did you how common were train robberies? Did you see any other research around that? Because I was one guy you had, and I'm forgetting his name right now, but he changed his name, right? And he was the postmaster for his community. Was that right?
Oh, yeah. He was from Macon County.
Yeah, and I was thinking that's interesting that their postmaster was just this guy who had tried to rob a train and did all these things.
I talked to the Macon County Historical Society. That he ran a well-known store that was in the post office, and he said, I had no idea that he was involved in that. And I said, well, he wasn't really. I mean, he did give him a gun, which apparently was hard to get at that time.
Yeah.
But I think all he did was he held the horses.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah. He was like the getaway man, sort of.
Yeah.
So, but was that common? Do you think that if he would have said, "Yeah, I robbed a train," or tried to, that would have been a big deal to the community, or do you think it was just maybe that's why he changed his name? I guess
the story in Macon County was that he robbed trains with Jesse James.
Oh wow, okay.
Which wasn't true at all.
Okay.
But Jesse James was from that area. His people, Russellville, Kentucky, which is real close to Franklin. So he might have known of Jesse James. But
Yeah. Well, he kind of didn't. Jesse James get his criminal start like in West Tennessee, sort of, didn't he?
He was started out as a bushwhacker.
Okay,
With
yeah.
Quantrill,
Yeah.
and his Raiders, and they just. To them, the Civil War never ended.
Right, yeah,
They just kept killing. So, yeah. So, I mean, people were kind of proud of, hey, yeah, he rode with Jesse James. But I don't think so.
Yeah.
But, I mean, he was involved in a train robbery. Yeah, the irony here is that these guys, while they were in the Union Army, they actually protected the L&N Railroad, because the Confederates were robbing quite a bit. And it's kind of turned that, okay, we used to guard the railroad, now we're going to rob the railroad.
Right, yeah.
Because, I mean, they were starving, really.
Yeah.
It was hard. They were farmers, but still they were really suffering.
Well, and this is in southern Kentucky, which Kentucky was a part of the Union, but I wonder if Reconstruction had kind of touched that area as well.
It did. There were soldiers who were stationed there. In fact, when they escaped from prison, it was soldiers shooting at them.
Oh, yeah, that's right, yeah.
And so...
well, they were there for the execution as well, right? The soldiers, yeah.
Yeah. So they were still in, I think, the southern part of the state, because that's just... Franklin's just over the line, literally.
Yeah.
And so it's close to, I think, maybe Springfield and Gallatin. It's in that area. So, yeah, they knew that there were a lot of people who were still Confederates. And so I don't think they really said, okay, we're going to stop at the state line, because they knew that they were across the state line.
Right, yeah. We've talked on my podcast, we've read a lot of books that are set in Appalachia, the settling of Appalachia. We've talked about Cold Mountain and the Civil War. What do you think it is about the Civil War, I feel like specifically in this area, that we find so interesting? Or I guess it's always kind of in the background of everything, just a little bit.
Yeah. I don't know. Us being a border state, I think that made tensions really high. Like I said, my grandfather, or great grandfather, he was from Tennessee, but he fought for the Union, and so there were literally divided families. I remember my father saying that there was a Confederate veteran who just lived down the road from him. My father knew my great grandfather. He lived to be in his 90s, so he remembered him telling stories about robbing smokehouses and stuff like that, kind of living off the land. And I just think we're still so close to it, really. I mean, he died in 1938. I mean, I know he lived to be in his 90s, but I didn't know people who fought in the Civil War, but I knew people who did.
Yeah, that's interesting, too. Yeah,
so we're still that close. So.
Yeah. It kind of reminds me, too, of, Champ Ferguson is really big in White County, and that's kind of what happened. His brother fought for the Union in Kentucky. They were in Kentucky.
Yeah.
And Champ Ferguson wanted to fight for the Confederacy, so that's why he moved to the White County area, so he could fight some guerrilla warfare
around Kentucky.
Somewhere around there. Yeah. But and I know too, for Sparta, there's a divide, because there's a community close to my house called Yankeetown.
Really?
Where there was a big Yankee support or Northern support for the Union there. So it is kind of interesting how there was a big divide in this area.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't really make the history books usually, but I mean, to me, it's the most interesting part of the Civil War, because it's really kind of a people's war.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean, they were kind of in the military, but then they kind of weren't.
Right. Yeah.
So. That's where the most viciousness took place, especially in Missouri and Kansas.
Yeah.
I mean, King had a brother who actually fought for the South, and he lived in Missouri. And at the end of the war, he was killed by Jayhawkers.
Oh, really? Wow.
So it's kind of ironic that they had a Confederate brother who was killed by Union, since most of the family was Union.
Yeah, that is interesting. Yeah. How about that?
Yeah.
So this is your fifth book?
Yeah, the others have been about Nixon. And they were more academic books. And this one, I mean, even though it's part of my research, to me, this is more journalism. This is more just writing a story in journalism style. And, it's too long for an article. It wasn't really a novel, so it's just kind of a short book. But like I say, it's turned into screenplay, which I'd never written before.
Well, congratulations, by the way.
Thanks.
Yeah.
It's a lot harder to write a screenplay than it is to write a book. Yeah, I wrote that in about 6 months because it's only about 70 pages. My screenplay is actually longer than the book. I've been working on the screenplay for 2 years. Mm-hmm. So I've won some awards, but right now, I'm still trying to find somebody who's interested in producing it.
Yeah,
that's the hard part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So do you have like an agent that you go through, or?
I don't. I've talked to people who have an agent, like the guy who published this book. He has had an agent, but he thinks that a lot of times agents are just kind of a waste of time.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So he actually owns. If I get this made into a movie, I think he gets 20%.
Oh, wow. Okay. There you go.
He has an interest in the film too, but I don't. But I would get one if I felt like it would help. Right now, I'm mostly just sending it out to festivals, and letting them look at it. And I got 3 awards.
Oh,
there.
Yeah, there we go. Hey, congratulations.
Thanks. And so, the publicity is supposed to help, you know. And
that's cool.
I've entered probably 10 or 11, so 3 out of 11. That's not too bad.
Yeah, that's awesome. Congrats. Yeah.
So that hopefully will, and that's why people go to festivals, is so that they can make contacts and stuff.
Right. Kind of networking, I guess.
Yeah.
What do you think's difficult about the screenplay side of it? Because I read a screenplay by he was like in the punk band The Pixies, and he and another guy had written a screenplay, and nobody really picked it up, so they turned it into this novel, but they left it as a screenplay. And to me it was really easy to read. I think I read it maybe in a couple hours. So what do you think is difficult on the screenplay side of things?
I think it's just showing the visual side of it. You want your writing to be descriptive, but I mean they would. I mean, ideally, what they'd like you to do is just write a screenplay that didn't have any dialogue. Go back to the old silent films. And it's like, well, that's totally opposite of the way I've taught. Using words to describe. You're just telling me to write scenes. And so it was a difficult, and it still is a difficult transition going from that. I do have some software that allows me to format it correctly. I wouldn't even know how to do that.
Yeah, it is formatted differently, isn't it?
What's it called? Final Draft, I think, is the one that I use, and that's kind of the standard for the industry. Everybody uses it.
So. I didn't know that you would need software to do that. That's interesting.
Yeah, and I tried to get Tech to let me put it on my computer here, but they wouldn't, and so I have to do all that at home.
Yeah.
We're hoping to start kind of a filmmaking program.
Oh, that'd be cool.
Yeah, and so we feel like that if we do that, then they'll install it in our lab, for the class.
Yeah, that would be really neat.
They just weren't going to do it for one person. So.
Well, they should.
I know
you should. Did you go in with your 3 awards?
No, I should really rub it in their faces. But I think they were afraid of security. That somebody's going to hack the system.
Sure.
Or whatever. But yeah, maybe I should try again.
Yeah. What is your writing process to? I guess you've written 5. Well, first off, when do you think that? I think that this would be a good idea for a book. I think I have an idea with this. It's very interesting. But when are you like, I want to write something extended over this subject? When does that enter your mind? When do you think this is the moment?
Well, in this case, I knew immediately I had to tell that story because. I've read a lot of stories and I've written a lot of stories, but to me, this is just the most far-fetched. And I have a personal connection to it too. Yeah. So I just thought this is just a gift. To be able to have that information, it was something that I felt like should be more than an article. And now it's just kind of evolved. That was kind of the way that the Nixon books were. I wrote my dissertation on Nixon, but then there was always more.
Yeah.
So if it's a real, I guess Hutch called it a deep well. If it's a real deep well, then you just mine it for as much as you can.
Just keep going back to it.
Yeah. And so I kind of exhausted the vein on Nixon, and this just fell into my lap. I really hadn't written anything in about 10 years.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, that's it. I won't write any more books. And then I just happened to find this from my nephew and thought, that is just an amazing story.
It is really neat. It reminds me of, which I told you, my childish ways of playing video games, but there's some things that remind me of the Red Dead Redemption series. I don't know if you've heard of that, but it's a Western video game, in the second one, there's a big element of train robberies in it, So there was a few things about that, because they tried to derail the train and get into it and all that stuff. So it was fun to go back and read through it. Like I said, twice.
I wasn't really a fan of Westerns until I started this research, and now I watch all kinds of Westerns.
I love Westerns. My students make fun of me for it, but
really? Well, they're not popular like they used to be.
I know. I feel like they're kind of making a comeback in a way, though. Yeah. But it's like Yellowstone. I mean, that would be a Western, right? And then I don't watch any of these, but they've got all the spin-offs for that.
I've seen those.
Tulsa King, I would consider that a Western. So.
Yeah, I mean, this actually took place in Kentucky, but at that time, Kentucky was the West.
Yeah, that's true. So. That's funny that you say that, because I gave one of my students to read Charles Frazer's 13 Moons. I don't know if you've read that, but it's set in Appalachia in the Smokies, and it's like the Cherokees have been removed. And one of these, the protagonist stays behind, and there's a Cherokee tribe that is there, and he kind of becomes a part of this tribe. But anyway, she keeps telling me it's a Western, and I keep saying it's not a Western. But she's like, yeah, it is. It's got all these elements to it. So it's funny that you say she's going to love to hear that.
Well, I was reading a book about a Hollywood producer. In fact, I think he produced Chinatown. I think was one of his productions, and he said, if it's got a horse in it, it's a Western.
That's exactly what she said. That's exactly what she said. She goes, there are guns and there's a horse.
And these guys were cavalry guys, so they rode horses.
So I guess it is a Western. How about that? That's funny. What do you love about Nixon?
Nixon really, I think, was largely responsible for me going into journalism. Because that whole Watergate thing happened when I was in high school. I always liked to write. But then when he resigned, I thought, the press is more powerful than the President of the United States. Even Nixon said that. He said, the President's important, but, if you're dealing with journalists who are against you, that's really a hard hill to climb.
Yeah.
And that was probably more true then than it is now, because we just had ABC, CBS, and NBC.
True, yeah.
So if those three networks didn't like you, you really weren't going to get any information anywhere else. Now, of course, you have Fox and other places you can go to get the conservative.
It's everywhere, right? Yeah. Yeah.
So I just thought, that's something that I would like to investigate, is just how journalism can uncover corruption. At least ideally. I don't think there's good about it now. But back then they were hungry. For the truth.
So so you've written 4 books on Nixon. What are the differences in the 4?
Well, with the first one, it was just kind of how he rehabilitated his image. Because he lived 20 more years. And, I know at his funeral people are going to be respectful anyway, but, I can remember the 70s, and he really did a pretty good job of using the press to point out the fact that, I opened up China, and I signed a peace agreement with the Soviet Union. I ended the Vietnam War. I did a lot of good things.
And he did the space shuttle as well, didn't he? Or did he sign off on that?
Well, I think he was involved in the program, and Environmental Protection Agency, all kinds of legislation, social legislation was passed under him. And he just felt like I think that they should at least make the ledger a little bit more balanced than what it was. And he was able to do that really by courting the press. Ironically enough, the people who brought him down kind of helped to bring him back up.
That's interesting.
I wrote a book about the Vietnam War. In terms of Congress. So that was kind of a follow-up to Nixon. I wrote a book about Oliver Stone's movie, Nixon. And let's see... Then I just there was so much left over from my dissertation that I just collected a group of articles about Nixon over that 20-year period. One of them was from Hunter Thompson, And I have Hunter Thompson's autograph because
cool.
you're talking about contacting his people. And so he gave permission, and he gave it to me for free. Usually people say, yeah, you can use my article for $200. It's a Newsweek article. You're charging me $200? But, Hunter Thompson says, take it.
Yeah.
Of course, he hated Nixon. And
okay.
It was hilarious. I mean, if an obituary can be hilarious, Hunter Thompson.
Yeah. So if you're writing a book and you use an article, you have to pay for that article?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I use the entire article.
Oh, I got you. Okay.
It might just be 3 pages, but still, it was the entire thing.
Yeah.
And, this was Newsweek magazine, Time magazine. Of course, I was still in graduate school, and it's like, you don't need the money. I need the money.
Right, you're right, yeah.
My book's probably going to go out to 30 people, but I'm paying $200 an article. There's like 2 dozen articles.
Yeah.
So it added up.
Yeah.
So I really appreciated Hunter Thompson giving it to me
for sure, yeah.
Because he was the most famous person in the book, right?
So how do you research when you are doing something like this? Do you start from a specific beginning, or do you just kind of gather a large amount of, I guess, texts and kind of, as you're reading, bookmark that and note that in different places?
You mentioned about the old newspapers. I took out a subscription. In fact, it's just now expired to newspapers.com.
Oh, okay.
And they go back to the 1800s.
Okay.
And so a lot of this information I just got off the internet because I had subscribed to that. It's kind of related to Ancestry.com.
Oh, okay.
A lot of people use that. And so I guess if they want to get deeper into history, they go to the newspapers. And that was really helpful. And I mean, reading the newspaper articles, they thought King and Owens was guilty too. I mean, they did not look at the possibility that they were innocent.
Yeah.
And people talk about the news being biased. Well, they were biased. I mean, the paper out of Louisville and Nashville, hang them. They're guilty. And that, of course, eventually is what happened.
Yeah. The attorney, the prosecution attorney, I had a note that I had written down. I don't have my notebook with me, but one of them was, they wanted to tell him, they said, like, I hope this is the last innocent man you hang.
Yeah.
And then he said something back to them, and I was like, man, he is convinced that these guys are the...
They were convinced.
Yeah.
And, because, I mean, they didn't really know the background. Even William King didn't know for sure who did it. I think the only person who knew was Abraham because he was the person who did it. But maybe King knew if he was faking being sleeping and overhearing that. I do kind of believe him on that. I mean, because this was his last testimony. So, and he wasn't an evil man. I can't believe that he would go to the gallows lying. You'd want to get abreast, whatever sin you had.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Well, I thought it was interesting how, though, really up until they went to the gallows, that King was saying that Owens was the guy who did it.
He believed that Owens knew about it, and I guess to the extent that he gave the gun away, he did.
Yeah.
Okay, I gave you this gun, and you give it to somebody else, you say, and you won't tell me who it is.
Yeah.
And my brother ends up dead.
And it's bloody when I get it back. Yeah.
The gun, somebody hit him over the head probably to knock him out.
Yeah.
And so you have to have been involved. And I think the only thing Abraham Owens just said, I didn't kill him. And that may have been true.
Yeah.
And again, I don't think he wanted Harvey King to be killed. They wanted Riley Toe to be killed.
You're right. Yeah.
Riley Toe did not. He was not killed. He lived to be several years later.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. I've been to these people's graves.
I saw the pictures in that. Yeah. How was that?
Well, that was real early in my research, but it was kind of eerie.
I'm sure, yeah.
And I think maybe one of the tombstones even says hanged for murder, or maybe it was Harvey King's grave, because they're all buried together. Harvey, Abraham, and William. I think maybe it was Harvey King that says on his tombstone murdered.
Oh, okay.
And he was murdered.
Yeah.
So.
I had mentioned Eric Larson to you. Because when I read his stuff, it's more of like a narrative. It's research based, and he's got his sources, and it reminds me too of, I can remember you teaching us about Capote's interview style through In Cold Blood. Yeah. And I finally got to read In Cold Blood last week.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So that one's fresh on my mind, but. that Capote's is for sure like a narrative, and you were talking about, I did feel like this was like a journalistic article.
It was, yeah.
Have you thought about writing in a narrative style, or?
Well, that's where I get into the screenplay, because Hollywood always says based on a true story. They never say a true story.
Yeah, right.
So, otherwise it'd be a documentary.
Sure, yeah.
And so I'm not making a documentary, although people said I should, but they'll say things like, well, that's stupid. Who would do something like that? And I go, have you ever been to Tennessee? There's a lot of people who are not necessarily that smart. But there's no smart person would do that. And I said, I'm not saying these people were smart.
Yeah, this is just what they did, yeah.
So they want you to kind of, I don't know, they want you to make it more palatable, I guess, because,
sure.
These guys were not choir boys. But yet in a movie, you kind of want to identify with them a little bit.
Sure.
And so they say, why don't you just bring up the kind of a softer side, because you got to have a protagonist, you know, and it's most likely going to be William King. So even though he's done all these bad things, show the fact that he was a brave soldier, for instance, he's captain.
Yeah.
So he was ahead of about, I guess, 90 men. And allow people to have some kind of empathy for him, even before all this stuff takes place. And also how tough life was back then.
Yeah, that's something that we've talked about when we've read these Civil War stories. I don't know if you're familiar with the author John Ely, but he has a set of novels that he starts with. They settle in Appalachia, and he follows his family up until the Depression. And there's one that's set in the Civil War, and it's very honest. It's very rough. It's not sugar-coated. So, it was a very rough time.
Yeah.
And I think when we watch the movies, sometimes it romanticizes it just a little bit, know. But it was definitely a hard time to live.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. My inspiration was, I don't know if you've seen this movie, but it started out as a book, Ride with the Devil.
Okay, no, I'm not.
That's about bushwhackers during the Civil War. And Missouri, Kansas bushwhackers. And just the violence, there's nothing is spared there. It's just brutal. And I think maybe we don't want to think of our ancestors as being like that.
Right,
But everybody was like that.
Yeah.
The ones who survived.
It was a tough time. It was very tough.
Yeah.
We read Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil.
Yeah.
And John Barrett is a journalist, and it was my book of the year last year.
Yeah.
But one thing that I told the people that were on the episode with me was, I wondered if the narrative-based storytelling, when you are telling a story like this, do you think that it takes from the objectivity from it?
It could, because you're kind of going inside people's minds a lot of times. Right now I'm reading The Assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford.
I've seen that movie.
It was based on a book, and I saw the movie. One of the people that I'm talking to, one of the producers in Hollywood, he said, you need to see that movie. And I said, well, I have seen it. Well, you need to watch it again. And so I did. And then I read the book, and the book is a lot richer, because you go into what they're thinking. And of course, that's not journalistic.
Right, yeah.
But it seems to be plausible.
Sure.
So as long as it's plausible, I'm willing to go along with it.
Yeah. So do you think that there is a line for, I guess, authors like Eric Larson, or maybe, I don't know if you've read any of David Grant's stuff, like Killers of the Flower Moon and things like that. Yeah. Because I feel like that they're kind of narrative to an extent as well. What do you think is the line of, okay, you're going past objectively telling a story to we're starting to create things just a little bit.
What was that book? They made it into a movie where they were killed at sea. They were fishermen, deep sea fishermen.
I'm not sure.
Let's see. I'm trying to think who all starred in that movie. But anyway, it was based on a book, and he was talking about what these fellows were thinking while they were at sea and knew that they were doomed. Well, how would he know?
Sure,
Nobody came back from that.
Yeah.
And so he was kind of criticized for that. It's like, you really, that's not journalistic. You shouldn't say what they were thinking. But again, you could say, well, it probably wasn't happy thoughts. You know that they were probably panicked. So I think he just went with that, saying that, this is a likely scenario. And in this screenplay that I'm writing, there is no transcript of what the lawyer said in their closing statements.
That's interesting.
So I created their closing statements, both pro and con. My brother's a judge. I said, read that and see if you think that's accurate. And he said, yeah, that's accurate.
That's
so
good.
I thought, okay,
Yeah, there you go.
Judge all your life, so
Right.
if you like it, I think it'll pass the smell test.
Yeah.
So if it seems authentic to people who would know, even though it's not journalistic, I think that's okay.
Yeah. Do you have any, I guess, advice to someone who, or students who may be thinking about writing something, whether that be fiction or nonfiction? Do you have like advice on where to start and how to stay motivated and things like that?
Well, it's hard, you know. It's I think it's a lot easier, as I said, writing an article or a book. Transferring to screenplay, that was a big shock for me. A totally different style of writing.
Yeah.
So I've just always been more comfortable with nonfiction. So I mean, the adage is write what you know. You know, and I was interested in Nixon and politics, and that was a part of my life growing up. These are my people, really.
Yeah.
You know, hillbillies, and so I know that era. So yeah, I don't. Sometimes I think people will try to be too cute and try to go to worlds that they're not familiar with. But you know, there can be a lot of drama in your own existence, just in your genealogy or everyday life. I mean, people have had a lot of times terrible things happen to them, but it could even be therapeutic, even if it's not published, just to get it out of your system and write it.
Sure. Yeah.
So I'm a big believer in plugging away. You know, sometimes you'll think, well, you know, I don't think this will ever be successful. But you know, you can have successful on lower levels. I mean, I have won contests.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know that I'll ever see a movie made out of it. Maybe it'll be made after my death. You know, sometimes writers get found after they've already died.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and it's just something that I did for myself. I mean, I just felt like I had to write it because it was really kind of a family history to a large extent.
Yeah.
That he was a part of these people's lives and lived with them for at least 2 years. I think he was served for 2 years, the last 2 years of the war.
Okay.
So,
how has people in Macon County and I guess Franklin, Kentucky, have you had any read that and reach out to you? Or
yeah, I had a book signing up in Franklin
cool.
that went real well. Franklin does. I mean, they've got like a plaque, you know, saying where the hanging took place and things like that. But they haven't really. I don't think they've really realized how rich a story that it is. You know, and so maybe the book will get people interested in it again. You know, some people are just interested in history anyway. But I think that this could be something that causes maybe Franklin to be able to increase tourism. Even,
yeah.
You know. With all these sites that took place. I mean, there are other things that's happened in Franklin that they publicized, like John and June Cash got married there.
Oh, wow, I didn't know
that.
that.
The song says they were married in Jackson.
Yeah.
But they were actually married in Franklin.
How about that?
But so they'll talk about things like that. But I think, you know, your best story though is this story, and so I hope that they'll give it a little bit more attention.
Yeah, it is an interesting story.
Yeah. I mean, it's just phenomenal. It's really kind of a. I mean, if it wasn't so tragic, it'd be kind of a comedy. The way that, you know, the train catches on fire and
I know.
money burns up, and you know, somebody rats out to the other people, and he ends up getting killed. And I mean, it's tragic, but it's just so many bad things had to happen.
Yeah, I thought that when I was reading about the train catching on fire and the money burning, I was thinking that would be me robbing a train, I would get in there and all the money had burned up, and I'm going to go home with just a couple boots and stuff like that.
Yeah, they didn't make much at all.
Yeah,
and I think there was $25,000 in the safe.
Oh wow, man.
And
that would definitely be me
and
organizing
there were vouchers.
a robbery.
I mean, it wasn't like greenbacks, but it was vouchers that were worth money. You know, it's just another form of money.
Yeah.
They left that. It's just, you know, that's just paper. The vouchers were worth thousands of dollars if they left.
Yeah. What is it? A comedy of errors or something like that?
It just keeps compounding into where it's just an unbelievable story.
Yeah.
And William King says, I'm hanged for my brother's murder.
Yeah.
I loved my brother.
You're right,
He was
yeah.
his younger brother. And he said,
Yeah.
I would come to his defense always.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And he ended up being, because I said he had a brother that got killed by jayhawkers. His dad was accidentally shot by a neighbor.
Oh, my
I think he was
gosh.
showing him a gun, and it went off
Wow.
and killed him.
Huh.
And then he had a couple of sisters to die of tuberculosis. And this all happened in like a 5-year period. But there were after he was hanged, his brother was murdered, and then he was hanged for his murder. There were no men in the family. It was his mother and 4 sisters. And I don't think they ever got married.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
So I guess it ended with him.
Really, it
Yes,
did.
yeah.
Yeah. They didn't have any progeny, I guess.
Yeah, right, yeah.
Or at least they had their name.
Yeah. I forgot to ask you this, and I guess we're getting close to the end here, but do you have a favorite book or a favorite author?
I've always liked, and I didn't read it until I graduated from college, I've always liked Catcher in the Rye.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm not a big lover of fiction, but I just like the way that it's written in this conversational style. And I was an English minor, and back then you had to have 27 hours for a minor.
Yeah.
So I took a lot of English courses. I didn't know anything about Catcher in the Rye. So I've got a minor in this and never heard of this book.
Okay, yeah.
And of course, he was very reclusive too, J.D. Salinger. But I just like the way that it starts out. If you really want to know about it, it's like kind of saying, you probably don't want to hear the story. When somebody says that, you want to keep reading.
Yeah, of course I want to know about it.
like somebody said, I've always wondered what went into making a hot dog. Now I know, and I wish I didn't.
Yeah.
Well, I got to read that second paragraph. What goes into making a hot dog?
So I don't want to know what's in hot dog. I told my students that the other day. I said, I just want to eat them. I love hot dogs.
Yeah.
Don't tell me what's in them. I'm just going
They're
to.
great.
Yeah.
They're great. Yeah. So I just like the way that he wrote it, and it's not very long either. It's probably about 120 pages.
Oh, okay.
But you can read it in an afternoon, really. But I tell my students it's a classic, and the reason I know it's a classic is that there's Cliff's Notes. If a book has Cliff's Notes, it's a classic. But don't read the Cliff's Notes because this is short anyway.
So when Russ Witcher Cliff's Notes come up, that's when when you know you've made it.
I would have made it. Now that actually is how I read Moby Dick, because it was a summer class.
Okay.
And it's 700 pages.
It is long. Yeah.
1 week to read it.
Oh my gosh.
That's where I go to Mr. Cliff's Notes.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's the only time I ever did that.
Yeah.
And I don't even know if I'd have done that if I had maybe 2 weeks to read it. But I'm not a fast reader, and I can't read 700 pages in a week.
Yeah, I feel like I'm a pretty fast reader, but I could not read. It would probably take me a couple weeks to read 700 pages. That's a lot.
Yeah. Well, somebody told me, it may have been in the same class, he said, I lost my job reading Moby Dick. he worked like at a grocery store, and he missed work to read it's just, and I was telling the students that, he says, I don't think I'd lose a job.
Yeah, I don't think so either. Yeah, no. Well, we're doing a thing for the podcast called Big Summer Read, and we've Jason Crockett's on all the time with me, which I'm thankful for that. And his favorite book is The Stand by Stephen King.
Yeah.
So we picked it, and it's 1,100 pages, and he
heavens.
brought me a copy of it, and I was like, oh no, what have I gotten
People
into?
used to say that's his best book. Who've read it all. I've read some. I hadn't read that.
I've not read any Stephen King, so this will be my very first.
Yeah.
But we'll
I've read
see.
some of the short stories too, and then the movies. If I like the movie, I'll go read the article or the short story.
Yeah, cool.
So right now, like I say, it's Assassination of Jesse James. I'm just reading all stuff from that era. Just to try to pick up what life was like, just how they described it.
Yeah, I'll try to send you a copy of it is fiction, but it's called A Time for Drums, or A Time of Drums by John Ely. It's the Civil War book I was telling you about. Yeah, like I said, it's fiction, but I think that it was pretty realistic.
Where is he based?
So he's passed away now, but he's from Asheville.
Okay.
Yeah, I think this was probably written in the late '60s, sometime like that.
Okay. Yeah.
He's kind of somebody I stumbled upon. He probably is my favorite author. It's between him and Charles Frazier. I talk about Frazier all the time, so I've had to put him at the top. But I stumbled upon him at McKay's. I just found this book for $1, and I took a chance on it, and I thought, this is great. Yeah. And then I went back and saw that there were more to it. So
Well, the guy who wrote True Grit,
True Grit's great.
That's a great book too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And of course, it's been made into a movie twice.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I liked both movies, really.
Yeah.
And the book was good as well.
Yeah, yeah.
So, yeah, you kind of accidentally come up on people, and just stick with them if you really like them. Like this guy who wrote Ride with the Devil. He also wrote Winter's Bone. I don't know if you ever saw that movie.
No, I've not
with
seen
Jennifer
that.
Lawrence. I think
Okay.
she's in it. But he writes a lot about Appalachia. He's from Missouri.
Oh, okay.
And sometimes it's Civil War, but sometimes it's, present day. But he's just got the ear.
Okay,
He really knows how to do dialogue.
Oh yeah, that's John Ely. I feel like that's my favorite part of his writing is the dialogue. Just it's seamless, and to me it feels authentic. So I really enjoy reading it.
Yeah, well, and just phrases that they use, like in the screenplay, I use skedaddled. I mean, that just says Civil War. They skedaddled back to Tennessee. I love words like that.
Oh yeah,
popular then that we never used.
Yeah, right. So, tell me about your podcast that you do.
We are interviewing faculty members across campus about what they have researched and where they went to school, and just kind of focusing on the human side of these people. And we've learned a lot, I mean, ourselves, talking to engineers and foreign language experts and whatever, and we just felt like that it's something that the community needed to know a little bit more about too, to kind of humanizing the faculty here, and what all they've done, and some of them are still working on like their dissertations,
cool.
And so I did that. I was working on a dissertation and also teaching, and it's really tough to juggle all. And of course, you got to produce stuff. It's got to be published if you want to get promoted. And so it's just it's really kind of a grind, especially in the early years, just to get established and go up the ranks as high as you can. And so a lot of times we're just portraying what they're involved with and trying to make their mark in their field too.
How long have you been doing the podcast?
We're finishing the second year.
Okay.
So we haven't been doing it very long. But it seems to be popular, in terms of people being interested in doing it. I think maybe some people must have had and I've seen this before, they've had a bad experience maybe with the press.
Sure.
And they think, well, I was misquoted. Well, this is a podcast.
This is your direct quote.
We can't misquote you. These are your own words.
You can only misquote yourself.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's just there's kind of a little bit of a backlash where people have had a bad experience with the press.
I get that. Yeah, I understand that.
Yeah.
And it's called On Our Mind?
On Our Minds,
and it's on YouTube?
You can find it on YouTube, yes. Okay. And we should have, I hope, a new episode, if not this week, next week.
Okay, perfect. Well, I know I'll be looking for it.
Well, thank you. Well, I'll look up yours, too.
Oh, thank you, yeah. I think I have, I think my wife listens to it sometimes.
Yeah.
And that's probably it.
Well, that's
but
good.
It's okay.
That's good. When I was writing my dissertation, I said, one person will read this, and that's my mother. Not even my wife, just my mother.
Yeah.
And she read it. So.
Well, thanks again for listening, everybody. I really do appreciate it. I hope that you enjoyed that interview. I really enjoyed talking to Dr. Witcher, and I thought he had some unique perspectives on writing, and especially the screenwriting part. I thought that was really interesting about him writing the screenplay. I did have a few things that I wanted to talk about before we ended the episode. First, remember our big summer read, The Stand by Stephen King. We are going to start reading that after I get back from the beach, from the glorious beaches of St. Augustine. We'll be back on June the 8th, and so that's when I'm going to start reading The Stand. So if you want to read along with us, there's still plenty of time. Go pick up a copy, listen to the audiobook, whatever you want to do. Let us know you're listening, and maybe we can have a big show together. That would be really fun. Also, if you know of an author, big or small, popular or not popular, published or self-published, if you know an author who has published work and you think that they'd be interested in being on our podcast, send me an email at dreamfactorypodcasts@gmail.com, and I would love to try to find a way to get them on the show. That's a dreamfactorypodcast@gmail.com. The D, the F, and the P are capitalized. Did you get that? Okay. And then lastly, June is our month of Charles Frazier. We're going to start on Monday, June the 2nd with Cold Mountain and go through his 5 novels chronologically as they were released. And I'm really looking forward to that. We're going to talk about the movie Cold Mountain. We're going to talk about a couple of times the books. Like we might have 13 Moons for one Monday and then a bonus episode of 13 Moons on Friday with someone else's perspective on it. I'm really looking forward to it. Frazier's one of my favorite, if not my favorite authors. So if you want to follow along with this, pick up a copy of Frazier's book, read one of those, and send me your thoughts. It'd be awesome to hear. All right, that's all I've got. Looking forward to the month of Frazier. And as Electrico once said, live forever!